I thought it would be a good idea to talk about emulation and ROMs and things like that, and why Pokemon isn't emulated on the Wii U yet. It seems interesting that Pokemon has come to the 3DS via the, red, blue, and yellow ports, but it hasn't come to the Wii U. Now, some people might say, well, Proto, that's because it's a bad system, Proto, duh. And I would say, I guess, I don't know. But I would also say at the same time, where there's money to be made with little effort, why wouldn't one exert such little effort to make such money? So I think a lot of people don't understand exactly what emulation is and how it works. So I'm going to make a very short, detailed explanation right now, but of course you can do much more research. And I would suggest it, but I know how people are, so this will probably suffice for them. Emulation is emulating something. It doesn't necessarily have to be a console, but that's the most common term for emulation these days due to people wanting to play older games. You can get yourself an emulator, and what the emulator does is takes that foreign coding language and changes it real time into your computer's language to see, display, and output and input said commands to play the original system properly. So for example, the emulator for the NES, let's say you're using Nesticle or JNES, those are two emulators, and you want to play Super Mario Brothers. Well, not only does the emulator have to get the RAM correct, it also has to get the CPU speed correct, and it has to make sure that your CPU isn't running that game at its full speed versus the NES's CPU, as well as encoding on the fly. Now, for older game consoles, this isn't a problem, and even a Pentium 2 probably wouldn't have a problem doing this. I know this from first-hand experience. Trust me, a Pentium 2 can run Nintendo and even a Super Nintendo without an issue at all. And again, that's because the computer itself is significantly more powerful than those systems, but it still has to do it real time. So more complex, more demanding emulators with more effects, particle effects, things like that get made, makes the emulator slow down, chug a bit, because it has to do it all in real time. So you're starting to see, I literally don't know what I said there. I'm so tired right now. Anyways, I'm going to try and finish this out. So you're starting to see that emulators take a lot to run a game. However, once an emulator is created, it's very rare that it has to be tailored around a specific game. So there are a few examples that I can cite that would change this, where there were Super Nintendo games that had a special FX chip in it. You remember what I was saying about those effects earlier? Well, they come into play because if you don't have the FX chip, then you can't run the effects, and that is a separate piece of hardware. So again, this is another addition that needs programmed into the emulator. But for the most part, most other games don't have issues like that. Of course, there's going to be external peripherals that are needed, like with Kirby's Tilt and Tumble. Obviously, you can't tilt and tumble a keyboard and expect it to work like the game does. It just doesn't and won't work that way unless you have a motion controlled keyboard, in which case, fuck you, no one has that bullshit. God, that sounds horrible, actually. Anyways, God, that sounds so bad. Motion controlled keyboard. God, man, you ever tried to type on the Wii with a Wiimote? Oh, it's so horrible. Anyways, it's not difficult to emulate a game once you have the emulator and it's working fine. There are some specific things that you'll have to alter for each individual emulator based on each individual game. But for the most part, like 99% of the time, you're going to get okay results. It's going to run the game. It's going to do what you want it to do. So since Nintendo already has emulators out the ass for the Wii U, it begs the question, why wouldn't they port Pokemon? And that strictly comes down to a money concern rather than an actual hardware limitation concern or piracy concern or anything else. You have to wonder if they released it on 3DS, and that means they're not worried about piracy. They have their piracy on lockdown on the 3DS. Okay. They're relatively cheap. They don't make Nintendo millions of dollars. It's not a $60 new release. And though probably millions of people downloaded it, it's still curious why they wouldn't port it over on the Wii U. Traditionally, Pokemon is a mobile game. Not only does blowing the game up on a big screen expose the sprites and make them look very, very bad. Again, have you ever seen something up close and said, wow, that looks terrible when it's blown up, but when it's constrained to a very tiny, finite picture, it looks 10 times better? That would be due to the sprite limit that was in place during the development of Pokemon. So, it not only makes the game look bad, but at the same time, it's also to generate profits and revenue. See, once Pokemon came out on consoles, individuals would no longer be forced to purchase the 3DS just to play said Pokemon game. It wouldn't really surprise me if Nintendo didn't have a 3DS emulator for the Wii U itself, meaning that they're probably holding it back due to the simple fact that they want to drive up sales for the 3DS itself instead of capitalizing on a multi-game release for both consoles. If I was a betting man, I would tell you right now that the main reason that Nintendo doesn't release Pokemon on the Wii U or any home console for that matter is because that they want to drive up profits for their mobile system. Without Pokemon, there is no real games that are really constrained to the 3DS only for any reason. Think about it for a second. Is there a Mario series that's specifically on the 3DS only? No. Is there a Zelda series? No. There are Zelda games and Mario games for the 3DS, but there's never any that have been long time running specifically for the 3DS. There was Wario Land for a long time on the Game Boy, and Wario Land was not on a home console for many years until the Nintendo GameCube, and then he somehow turned into a minigame collection where, yeah, I guess for better, for worse, people like it, people don't like it, fine. But you get the point. There's no exclusive for the 3DS outside of Pokemon. There really isn't. There's plenty of others where there's third-party games and side games, but there's not that gotcha. And so when Pokemon gets removed and put on to the home console, the gotcha is gone, and you're not going to want to get a 3DS because there's no reason to have a 3DS. Because many of the games on the 3DS, while very good and compelling, have Big Brother versions on the Wii U. Mario Kart, Super Mario 3D World vs. Land, the Zelda, not Triforce Heroes, but I don't know, maybe it is Triforce Heroes. The one that is like Hyrule Warriors. It's way better looking, performs way better on the Wii U versus the 3DS. And so you just ask the simple question, why would you get a 3DS? Just because the games are slightly cheaper? Fuck it, save a little bit more and get way better gaming experience. And the gaming experience won't even be as hard on your eyes. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not a genius or anything, but I am a doctor. And as a doctor, I recommend that you take 2 of my videos before going to sleep and click that like button and call me in the morning. You can reach me in the comment section below, so I think that will replace the calling. But I've been Protomario, or Dr. Mario, as I have been dubbed. And thanks for watching, ladies and gentlemen. As always, good gaming, and God bless.